It was a chilly October evening when Emma first noticed her new neighbor. She had just returned from work, the streets quiet, the autumn leaves rustling beneath her feet. The apartment complex had always felt anonymous, a blur of faces she never recognized. But that evening, something unusual caught her attention. A man was unloading boxes from a moving van across the street. He looked around her age, maybe early 30s, with dark hair that curled slightly at the ends. What struck Emma most wasn't his appearance, though. It was what he did next. As she walked past the mailbox, he looked up and smiled. Then, almost casually, he said, "Hi, Emma. Welcome to Maplewood." Her steps faltered. Her name. He knew it already, though she had never spoken to him before. The words hung in the air, heavy with curiosity and a strange sense of familiarity. Hi," she stammered, glancing around to make sure he hadn't overheard her name somewhere. There was no one else in sight, just the two of them and the golden glow of the streetlights. "I'm Daniel," he said, shifting a box to his other hand. "I just moved into the apartment across the hall. I thought I'd say hello before we officially meet." Emma nodded, still processing the odd moment. "It's nice to meet you, Daniel." She forced a smile, trying to hide the tangle of questions in her mind. How did he know her name? Daniel seemed relaxed, almost casual, but there was a spark in his eyes that suggested he wasn't just being friendly. "I've heard a lot about you from a few neighbors. They said you make the best pumpkin bread in the building." Emma's eyebrows shot up. "Pumpkin bread?" she asked, a little wary. She'd only baked it once for the building's autumn gathering last week. He nodded, grinning. "Yes, the one everyone's been talking about. I thought I'd better introduce myself before you baked another batch and I had no excuse to meet you." Emma laughed softly, the tension easing a little. It was unusual, this kind of charm, this immediate connection without any shared history. She wanted to brush it off, to chalk it up to coincidence or good timing, but something in Daniel's presence felt different. They exchanged a few more words about the building, the upcoming fall festival, and the best coffee shop nearby. Daniel carried himself with a quiet confidence, never overbearing, just present and attentive. Emma found herself smiling more naturally than she had in weeks. When the conversation wound down, Daniel said, "I'll let you get inside, but I hope we run into each other again soon." Emma nodded, watching him carry the last box into the apartment across the hall. She felt an unexpected flutter in her chest, a mix of curiosity and anticipation. How could someone know her name before they even met? Later that night, Emma sat by her window, staring at the building across the way. The faint light from Daniel's apartment glowed warmly, and for some reason, she felt a pull she couldn't explain. She tried to shake it off, but her thoughts kept drifting back to him, to his smile and that unsettling familiarity. The next morning, she found herself hoping she would bump into him again. Her coffee in hand, she wandered to the lobby, scanning for any sign of Daniel. And that's when she realized something even stranger. He seemed to appear wherever she went, a quiet presence just beyond the edge of her vision. A shiver ran down her spine. Who was this man who already felt like a part of her world? And why did she feel like she should have known him all along? If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Emma didn't know it yet, but Daniel's arrival was only the beginning. And soon, the quiet whispers of the past would start to echo in ways she never expected. The next morning, Emma's thoughts were tangled. She kept replaying Daniel's words, the way he had greeted her as if they were already familiar. At first, she told herself it was charm, an uncanny coincidence. But the more she tried to dismiss it, the stronger the feeling lingered. She left her apartment a little earlier than usual, hoping to clear her mind with a walk to the nearby coffee shop. The streets were quiet, the air crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant bakery ovens. As she turned the corner, she froze. Daniel was there, leaning against a lamppost, holding a coffee cup. He smiled, and again, he said her name. "Morning, Emma." Her heart skipped. "Morning," she managed, her voice lighter than she intended. She felt a strange mix of excitement and caution, the curiosity from last night now twined with unease. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," he said, taking a slow sip of his coffee. "I just thought I'd see if the pumpkin bread rumor was true." Emma laughed, the sound soft, almost hesitant. "It's true, but I don't know why everyone's so obsessed with it." Daniel shrugged. "Some things are worth talking about." His tone wasn't flirtatious exactly, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made Emma's pulse quicken. She could feel it, not loud or overwhelming, just a quiet electricity between them. As they talked, Emma noticed a subtle pattern. He seemed to know little details about her life, like the fact she always picked the corner table at the cafe, or that she liked her coffee with extra foam. It wasn't intrusive, but it was uncanny. Finally, Emma couldn't help but ask the question that had been nagging her since their first meeting. "Daniel, how do you know my name? Or all these things about me?" He paused, setting his cup down. His eyes softened, and for a moment a shadow crossed his face. "Emma, I can't explain it all right now," he said carefully, "but I've known you longer than you think." Her stomach tightened. She wanted to press, to demand an answer, but something about his tone made her hesitate. There was honesty there, buried under layers she couldn't yet read. Instead, she nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll wait," she said, though 1,000 questions still buzzed in her mind. The days that followed were strange, filled with fleeting encounters that seemed accidental, but never were. Emma would see Daniel in the lobby, at the grocery store, even at the corner of her favorite park. And each time, he greeted her by name. Each time, it felt like he was quietly stitching himself into the fabric of her life. Yet, alongside the fascination, a faint unease grew. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel's presence was more than coincidence, that his knowledge of her world went beyond casual curiosity. It felt intentional. Then, one evening, while sorting through old boxes in her apartment, Emma found a photograph she hadn't seen in years, a picture of her as a child playing in a sunlit park holding a red balloon. Something about it made her pause, her breath catching. She remembered that park. She remembered that exact day. But what made her fingers tremble was the small figure in the background, a boy, watching her with a shy, almost familiar smile. She squinted, trying to see clearly, and slowly, a shock ran through her. It was him, Daniel. Her heart pounded. How could it be? She had no memory of ever meeting him in childhood, yet the photograph was undeniable, proof of some hidden connection, a shared history she had forgotten, or perhaps never fully understood. Emma sat down heavily, the photo trembling in her hands. Questions swirled through her mind. Who was he really? And why had he come back into her life now, with a familiarity that defied explanation? Outside, the city lights flickered against the windows. Emma felt a mix of fear and anticipation, the kind that made her pulse race and her thoughts spiral. Something about Daniel's presence wasn't just coincidence. It was destiny, or perhaps a secret waiting to be revealed. And in that quiet, charged moment, she realized that meeting him had changed everything. Nothing in her life would ever feel ordinary again. As the evening deepened, Emma stared at the photograph, a chill running down her spine. Who was Daniel, really? And why did she feel like their story had begun long before today? The photograph sat on Emma's kitchen table like a small, silent explosion. She couldn't stop staring at it. The image of a younger Daniel, a shadow of the man she had just met, watching her with that quiet, familiar intensity. Her mind raced, trying to connect the dots, but nothing fit neatly. How had she forgotten him? Or had she never truly known him at all? The next day, she found herself pacing her apartment, restless. Daniel's presence lingered even when he wasn't there. Every detail of their brief encounters replayed in her mind. The way he smiled, the ease in his voice, the way he somehow made her feel like she belonged in his world, even when she had only just met him. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Daniel. "Can we talk? There's something I need to explain. Tomorrow evening?" Emma hesitated. Part of her wanted to run, to protect herself from the flood of questions that were threatening to overwhelm her. But another part, the part that had been pulled toward him from the very first hello, urged her to say yes. She typed back quickly, "Okay, 7:30 p.m., your place?" The hours crawled by. Every second was heavy with anticipation, her heart drumming in her chest. She wondered what he was going to tell her. Was it about the photograph? About the strange familiarity that had haunted her since their first meeting? Or something even deeper, something she wasn't ready to face? When the time finally came, Emma arrived at his apartment, clutching her coat tightly around her. The lights were warm, inviting, and yet stepping inside felt like stepping into a story she didn't fully understand but couldn't resist. Daniel greeted her at the door, his expression calm but serious. He motioned for her to sit, and they faced each other across his small kitchen table. There was a tension in the air, heavy with things left unsaid, a quiet gravity that made Emma's pulse quicken. "I owe you the truth," Daniel began, his voice low and steady. "I know this is confusing, and I know I probably seem strange, but I've been searching for you for a long time." Emma's brow furrowed. "Searching? But why? Who are you, really?" He exhaled slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "I was in that photograph you found. I've always remembered you. I think we've been connected longer than either of us realized. Life pulled us apart, but I never forgot you." Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. It was almost impossible to believe. Memories of childhood and fleeting glimpses of familiarity pressed at the edges of her mind. Faces, laughter, moments she couldn't place, all surfacing in fragments. "Why now?" she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. "Why reappear in my life like this?" Daniel's hands rested lightly on the table, steady but tense. Because life doesn't give second chances often, and when it does, you have to take them. I don't want to let the chance to know you fully slip away again. Hung between them. Emma's heart ached with a mix of longing and caution. She wanted to believe him, wanted to reach across the table and close the gap between the past and the present, but there was still a part of her that feared being drawn into something she didn't understand completely. They talked for hours. He shared pieces of his life, the places he had gone, the events that had kept them apart, and the inexplicable pull that always drew him back to her. Emma listened, captivated and unsettled all at once. The more he spoke, the more she realized how deeply their lives were intertwined, beyond the bounds of memory and coincidence. By the time she left, night had fallen completely. The streets were quiet, the world wrapped in a soft darkness that felt intimate and vast at the same time. Emma walked home slowly, her mind a whirlwind of emotions, memories, and questions. Something about Daniel was undeniable, an echo from the past, a force that seemed almost predestined. And though she didn't yet understand it fully, she knew that whatever this connection was, it would not let her go. That night, lying in bed, Emma's thoughts kept returning to him. His eyes, his voice, the photograph that had started it all. The city outside her window was silent, but inside, her heart beat in anticipation, caught between curiosity, fear, and a budding hope she could hardly name. And in the quiet of her room, Emma realized she had crossed an invisible threshold. Whatever Daniel's secret was, it was only the beginning, and it would change everything she thought she knew about herself, about him, and about the life she had been living all along. The next morning, Emma woke to a gray sky, the kind of overcast that makes the city feel slower, quieter, almost secretive. She couldn't shake the memory of last night, Daniel's words, the intensity in his gaze, and that lingering sense of something long buried finally resurfacing. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. She opened it to find a small envelope slipped under the frame. No name, no markings, just her first name written in neat, familiar handwriting. Emma's hands trembled as she picked it up. Inside was a note, short and deliberate. "Meet me at the park, the place where it all began, 6:45 p.m. Emma's pulse quickened. It was him, of course, Daniel. The handwriting matched what she had remembered from childhood, vague yet unmistakable. She debated whether she should go, her mind swimming with caution, curiosity, and an inexplicable pull. In the end, the pull won. By evening, the park was quiet, the last traces of autumn sunlight spilling across the paths. Emma found him sitting on a familiar bench, the same bench from the photograph, if memory served correctly. He looked up, and the corners of his lips curved in that same half-smile that had haunted her thoughts since their first meeting. "You came," he said simply, as if no explanation were needed. Emma nodded, her voice catching. "I had to. I need to understand." Daniel gestured toward the bench, and she sat, noticing how small the distance between them felt, yet how vast the questions were. He took a deep breath, gathering the words he had clearly rehearsed. "I know this might be hard to believe," he began, "but we've known each other longer than most people know anyone. Life separated us, circumstances that neither of us could control, but I've never stopped looking for you." Emma swallowed hard. Why do I feel like I'm forgetting something? Something important? Daniel's gaze softened. Because you are. Memories have a way of hiding until the right moment. You were young, and life moved fast. But the bond we had, it's never gone. I promise you, Emma, I remember everything, and it's why I'm here now. Her chest tightened, and she could barely breathe. A mixture of longing, disbelief, and hope swirled inside her. "Everything? Really?" He nodded. "The moments we shared, the small adventures, the promises we didn't even know we made, they've all stayed with me. And now I want you to see what was always true, even if it was hidden." Emma felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. It was overwhelming. The life she thought she knew, her ordinary routines, her quiet independence, suddenly felt like only half the story. Daniel's presence was a reminder of a deeper, hidden current in her life, one she couldn't ignore. For a long time, they sat in silence, the park around them bathed in twilight. Emma traced the patterns of fallen leaves, trying to steady her racing mind. Each rustle seemed to echo fragments of memory, and she realized she wanted to trust him, even if part of her feared the truth might be stranger than she could imagine. Then Daniel spoke again, his voice low and steady, threading through the calm evening. "I don't want to push you, Emma, but I need you to know. The world we had as children, the world we're meant to have, it's not gone. It's waiting for us. And it starts with honesty, with facing the echoes we've ignored for too long. Emma nodded slowly. I want to understand. I want to remember. I just don't know where to start. He reached out, not touching, just resting his hand near hers on the bench, a silent gesture of reassurance. Start here, with me, step by step, moment by moment. You don't have to do it alone. A cool breeze swept through the park, ruffling her hair and stirring the fallen leaves around them. Emma felt something shift inside her, a quiet acknowledgement that life had led her to this moment, to this man, to a truth that had waited patiently through years and distance. She realized she had been holding her breath for longer than she knew. Now, finally, she was ready to exhale. Yet, as the streetlights flickered on and cast soft shadows around them, Emma couldn't shake a whisper of unease. Some parts of the past had been hidden for a reason, and not all of them might be gentle. What Daniel had uncovered, or remembered, might change everything she thought she knew. And deep down, she felt a pull toward the unknown, toward secrets waiting to be revealed, toward the story that was just beginning to unfold. The following morning, Emma woke to a quiet apartment, the sunlight slanting across her floor. Her mind was still tangled with the events of the previous evening. Daniel's words replayed endlessly, the echoes of a past she hadn't fully remembered, and a present that seemed both fragile and inevitable. By mid-afternoon, she found herself standing in front of the small bookstore they had visited as children, a place she hadn't thought of in years. She paused, memories flooding back, the tiny bell above the door, the smell of old paper, and the afternoon spent wandering among the shelves with a companion whose face had lingered at the edges of her mind. Daniel appeared at her side, as if sensing her hesitation. "I wanted to bring you here," he said softly. "It's part of the story, part of what you've been trying to remember." Emma nodded, uncertain. "I feel like I've been chasing fragments of something I should know, but can't quite see." He smiled gently, a warmth in his expression that contrasted with the chill in the air. "That's because you're remembering in pieces. Some memories hide until you're ready. I think you're ready now." They entered the bookstore together, the familiar scent of paper and ink wrapped around them, and Emma felt a strange comfort. Daniel guided her to a corner where a small shelf held a photo album she didn't recognize at first glance. "Open it," he said. Inside were photographs, letters, and small keepsakes, traces of their shared past. There were images of childhood adventures, handwritten notes, and snapshots from birthdays, holidays, and moments they had laughed together, but which she had long forgotten. Each page was a thread connecting the life she remembered with the one she had forgotten. Emma traced her fingers over a photograph of them, sitting on the grass, laughing as if the world belonged only to them. She felt a swell of emotion she couldn't name. Nostalgia, wonder, and something deeper, an ache of recognition. Daniel watched her quietly. "You see now, don't you?" he asked. "We've always been part of each other's lives, even when life tried to pull us apart." Tears pricked Emma's eyes. I remember bits and pieces, but I didn't know it was all connected. I didn't realize how much I missed you. How much I needed this." He reached out, taking her hand gently. "I never stopped missing you either. And now that we've found each other again, we can face it together. No more shadows, no more hidden echoes." For the first time in weeks, Emma felt a deep, settling clarity. The mystery of his knowledge, the strange familiarity, the pull she had felt, all of it made sense now. They had always been connected, a bond that time and distance couldn't erase.
They spent hours in the bookstore, talking, laughing, and piecing together memories. Each story Daniel shared unlocked another fragment of Emma's past. The photograph from her childhood no longer felt like a question. It was proof of a truth she had been too young to understand. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Emma stepped outside with Daniel. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant bonfires. They walked side by side, their hands brushing, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond that had endured. Emma realized that the anticipation, the curiosity, the small, inexplicable moments of connection, they had all led her here, to understanding, to closure, and to a beginning that felt like destiny. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves, "for finding me, for remembering." Daniel smiled, his eyes reflecting the golden light. "Thank you for letting me, for trusting me, for remembering with me." They paused on the bridge overlooking the park, the same park where their journey had started, and watched as the first stars appeared, shimmering faintly in the twilight. The city around them was quiet, holding its breath, and for the first time, Emma felt she could do the same. Let the past rest, let the present unfold, and trust the future. The hidden echoes of their past had finally found their voice, and in that voice, Emma and Daniel discovered something timeless, a connection that had never truly faded, a love and friendship woven into the very fabric of their lives, waiting patiently to be reclaimed. As they walked back toward the glow of the city lights, Emma knew one thing for certain. Some stories are written long before we understand them, and some connections, no matter how deeply buried, are impossible to forget. The night air wrapped around them like a promise, and as Emma looked at Daniel, she knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, anchored by memories, strengthened by the present, and guided by the echoes that had led them home.